Welcome to Biz Dev Live. My name is Cameron Toth, and I am so excited to bring you Lindy Chapman today. She is the host of ReloTalk, an entrepreneur and somebody that is extremely passionate about real estate, about business. We're going to get all into it and more right after the Biz Dev theme.
Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T.
Lindy Chapman, prior to starting her real estate career, Lindy spent 20 years moving throughout the U.S. and internationally in support of her husband's career and their 4 children. After a particularly challenging move to Dallas in 2014, she became a realtor, hoping to help the real estate industry better understand and evolve to meet the needs of consumers. However, she quickly realized the industry's dependence on a traditional model developed decades ago contributes to many of the frustrations of today's consumers and the increased challenges for the real estate professionals who seek to serve them. After 18 months at a traditional brokerage, she joined a local brokerage with low fixed commission splits that allowed her to create concierge services tailored to the individual client's needs and to build a thriving business primarily serving relocation clients not managed by an RMC. Thankfully, Lindy loves the adventure of starting over as her husband's job required another move this year to Boston. She pivoted to provide relocation consulting services and to educate consumers on the best strategies when buying or selling a home through her company, 180 Relocation. I know there's a lot more to this bio, but I'm going to let Lindy get into it here. I know we got some great takeaways for the guests today, and I'm really excited to get into it. Thank you for being on the show, Lindy.
Thanks so much, Cameron. It's great to be here.
So I know we're going to talk about things like changing or starting a career at any age or circumstance, right? We're going to talk about the importance of using LinkedIn and using your story, which we're going to get into your story, right? But tell us what you're doing right now as the host of ReloTalk and a couple of the other things that you got going on so people know kind of what's going on in the world of Lindy Chapman so that they have that entry, and then we'll get into your story.
Thanks, Cameron. We moved to Boston in January, which, you can't imagine a worse time to move. It was, right before the pandemic, and getting settled from Dallas to Boston was going to be challenging. Anyway, when the world shut down in March, I had been given access to LinkedIn Live early on as one of the beta testers. And so I wasn't able to work. I wasn't able to continue my business. Nobody was relocating. So I just started doing the LinkedIn Live and doing much of what you're doing, Cameron, just interviewing people and talking about the challenges of relocation. I also teamed up, I'm on the advisory board for a tech company called Pivot, which is a tech app for people that are relocating. And we did a survey with clients to find out, how many people had followed up with them if they had moved in December, which is often when we moved because of the school schedule. How many people had followed up to see how they were doing, see if things were going okay since everything shut down and they hadn't been able to make create their networks yet. And it was fascinating to find out that only 5% had heard from anybody involved in their relocation. So that's what ReloTalk, and that was why it was born, was just to talk with people that have moved recently in 2020 that had to repatriate back to their home country, and also mainly women, because about 75% of people that relocate as the spouse are women. These expats and recreated spouses and partners that have created careers to support other people in the relocation industry, other clients that move. And so it's been really fun because since getting into the real estate industry, I've really wanted to bridge the gap between what we as consumers who move, what we need, versus what the real estate industry and the relocation industry delivers. So it's been a really fun time and a use of that time to create that conversation.
Yeah. So I know we were talking about before we got on the difference between, the attention paid to different types of businesses. I love your focus on the women there. It was interesting as Biden and Kamala Harris were elected into the presidency and vice presidency, that the story around her husband giving up his job for it was a big story. Meanwhile, we don't get to hear these stories of all these women that have given up their careers or delayed their careers or postponed their careers or set their careers aside for a time. So absolutely interesting how that dynamic is playing out as we move into this future world of now all of a sudden it's a big deal that somebody gives up their career for their spouse, right? Talk to me through your story. I'm really excited to hear it. I know that you moved out. So what was behind moving to Germany? I don't know if you want to even go back before that and walk us through this whole life journey of Lindy Chapman.
Sure. Well, it probably started when I was a kid, and I grew up in Alabama, and I always felt like I didn't belong there, that there was just more of the world to be seen. So I left and went to Chicago to school at 18, had the chance to live in Europe for a year after my sophomore year, and I did that. Ended up getting connected with an organization then, and went back to Europe, back to Vienna, Austria, after I graduated from college for my first job. And my husband, who I'd met we were dating at the time, I had met in college, came over to Vienna and proposed to me after I'd been there for about a year and a half. So that wanderlust, that desire to be a global nomad was kind of inbred. But then when we got married, I came back, we ended up getting married. His job, he's in the biotech pharmaceutical world, caused us to move every 1 to 3 years, and on average, and so we just kept moving, and I've always liked it. It's always fun to start over and get to recreate yourself. There's certainly times that it's challenging, but so we moved on average about every 3 years. So I think 1 year was the shortest we were ever anywhere. 5 years was the longest we were ever lived anywhere. And but it was an adventure. It was a chance to start over. And like I mentioned, about 72 to 75% of people that relocate because of the spouse are women. But the interesting thing to me is that I think most of us operate as a team, or a lot of us operate as a team. He wouldn't have been as successful as he has been if it hadn't been for my willingness to pick up and go. If I was trying to have an equal career to him, it's a really hard balance to create. And it really, honestly, best job ever was to be mom to my 4 kids and to have that opportunity. It was hard at first because we had to make a lot of sacrifices financially to do that. But I think it's also, like I said, I think a big part of his success. And I've known a lot of men that have done that too. In fact, my husband always says that's what he wants to do, is be an expat spouse. So right now we're competing to see who's going to be the breadwinner so that one of us can retire.
Well, I was popping in to sort of say, I think that's where a lot of people have found themselves over the last 8 months, right? This idea of, this isn't the ideal situation, but man, this has been nice to spend some time with my family, my children. I know what they look like.
Yeah, it's so true. And those are great years when the kids are little. I think we found out real quickly after both of us were working, and I was trying to get my career off the ground. He was doing the same. I had my second child. And at one point I just said, one of us has got to quit working. Like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to be good for our relationship, because it was just too hard for me. And so, but I was really glad. I always wanted to be a mom. So it was really fun for me to step back and take on that role. And I think we do a disservice to women by telling them that that's not I don't know what the word is, but to me, that's such a respectable thing to do. Not valid, right. And that you'll never get your career again. And that was one thing after 20 years taking off, I really wanted to go in and prove, mainly because I have 2 daughters and 2 sons, but I wanted to prove to my 2 daughters that, you could take time off. And being a soccer mom is an admirable thing, right? Supporting a spouse is an admirable thing in their career.
Pull 2 things into this discussion, because first of all, taking care of the household, making sure that there's people that are nurses and doctors that can't do what a mother does, right? So there's that piece of it. You are a teacher in Germany. In addition to being with the kids, I find inspiration, lessons, management, understanding every day in dealing with my 4 children at home. I'm wondering how often you kind of refer back to the teaching piece and the raising of children in your entrepreneurial journey, in your, ability to get on and actually speak on camera, because I know I find inspiration in that every day.
Yeah. Well, I think it's you're a mom or a dad that stays at home with 4 kids and you homeschool them. You're the strongest individual I know, and you're the biggest problem solver, right? Think about HR headaches, right? You have 4 kids. How many different personalities are you dealing with, right? I mean, that makes an HR person's job or a manager's job look like child's play, literally, because that's the hardest. It's just sometimes the hardest thing to navigate, right? To make everybody happy, to help them find their gifts, their strengths. You're trying to figure out who should be playing what sport and how you're going to arrange it, and create. We always call ourselves Team Chapman because it had to be a team effort. Going on vacation, you got one person that wants to go here, another person that wants to go here, or even if it's trying to decide what to eat for dinner that night. So, and then of course, when you throw in moving, all the problem solving that you have to do, because it was me that was doing that. I was taking the lead and the role on a lot of that because my husband's job was requiring him to work 60, 70 hours a week. He was taking on a new team. He was going to a new city. He was traveling. And so you become chief problem solver. And that's everything in entrepreneurialism or in leading a company or in leading a team. If you've led a team of 4 kids in conjunction with the husband, you can pretty much do anything, I think.
I compare especially going through like the newborn process to Navy SEALs training, right? You got to stay up. You're woken up at whatever hour of the night. You're in this endurance run. Doesn't matter. You're on call, right? You have to do all this stuff. And when you're doing, especially if you're doing it on your own, right? There's no break. Mm-hmm. There's no. I love I thought what was it? The medicine commercials where they had the parent, kind of peeking their head and saying, "I'm sorry, I got to call in. I'm sick today. I can't." I thought those were genius because it's absolutely the truth. You just do not get to call out when you're a parent. It's this unique kind of training. So talk to us about the move. You moved from Germany back to the States, and you launched into this. You're doing these things. ReloTalk. You got Pivot going on. 180 relocation consulting. Talk to us about the kind of decision-making process, getting started in these things, and what that journey has been like and the lessons learned along that road.
Well, a lot of it's just been figuring it out. Again, I did different things at different cities that we lived and did different roles and jobs and volunteer things. When we moved to Germany, it took me 2 years to get my work permit. I wanted to work just because what are you going to do when you're living in a foreign country? I was spending time learning German. I actually kind of started my own little business teaching German kids English. That was kind of an under the table, but it was just a way for me to use my brain and do something besides going and having, lunch with the expat women and drinking wine every day, because I figured that was not going to have long-lasting good results. So I did that, finally got my work permit, was a substitute in the Frankfurt International School. So that was really fun, really enjoyed doing that. But that wasn't really a career or what I was trained in. But when we moved to Dallas, I only had 2 kids left at home, and one was a senior, so she was headed out the door. The other one was a freshman, and I knew that if I didn't find something to do to replace all the effort that I put into being a mom, which again, like I said, was the best job ever, that I would probably just curl up in the fetal position and not do very well when they all left home. So I got my real estate license. We had a really bad experience moving back from Germany to the U.S. The relocation company spend a lot of money on moving, taking care of visas and the shipping and all those different things. But where they often failed in the oversight was providing a real estate professional that really understood our unique needs. And so we were usually just limited to a company, a brokerage, and then it was kind of on our own or the broker to assign an agent to us. And that was where it often it fell apart. And when we moved to Dallas, it was particularly that way. Nice agent, but didn't understand our unique needs.
I want to go into this because really until I sort of spoke to you, and then I was watching a relocation episode, ReloTalk, I didn't really understand that this industry existed. right? I understood that people moved from country to country. I understand that people moved with jobs, but I really didn't understand that this was an industry in itself. And oftentimes we'll talk about abundance and we'll talk about that there's so many different niches and opportunities out there, but it's hard to sort of identify all of these different things and sort of know about them. So this is a great entryway for folks that just don't know about this industry. So if you could just sort of talk about that. Obviously, you were working with a company that was relocating you, so they paid another company to help do that. So talk to us about what these companies do and how they operate.
Well, that's interesting because I've been wanting to kind of understand how the relocation industry, as well as the real estate industry, operated. I didn't understand. It's a little shrouded in mystery, so I didn't understand it. But a relocation company will be hired by a corporation to manage the move from, like I said, everything from temporary housing to the movers, the household good moves, the real estate. But they're also getting kickbacks or referral fees on each one of those. And that's one of the big challenges, and I think that's where the real estate piece always came to be a challenge. That was how they paid for these services and the services they provided instead of... And so like if we were moving and we were using a real estate agent, the real estate agent has to pay up to a 50%, 42% commission split, which is a challenge because if you think about it, if I'm working with a client, I'm a real estate agent, I'm working with a client and nobody's taking my commission and I'm getting 90% of it, 10% is going to my broker, and they're coming in and they need 3 weeks of my time or 2 long weekends of my time, then I'm getting paid appropriately to get that done. But if I have another client coming in, they're buying a $500,000 home, it's a $15,000 commission, but half of that has to go to the broker and to the relo company. And they need not only to find a home, but they've got to find schools. They need to know about the driver's license. They need all these different things, and they want 2 long weekends. After you pay your taxes and all the fees associated with it, you've really not made minimum wage hardly at that point.
Yeah. And this is a common thing with a lot of entrepreneurs. And then you got this whole, which I'm really glad that we're going to jump into because I know DOS is sort of part of a solution for folks running into these challenges. But if you're building your own business, understanding how you profit is a big deal.
It is a big deal, and not everybody has that gene. It's a hard one to figure out. So anyway, but with those fees and stuff, sometimes it leaves the client that needs the highest degree of service. So for example, us moving back to the U.S., to Dallas, it's the size of Connecticut. We needed a high level of service from a real estate agent who really understood our needs, who was willing to give us 5 days of her time when we were in town, because we were only in town for 5 days. And we needed the highest degree of service, and yet she felt like she was being provided just the lowest level of compensation possible. And so she wasn't available. She gave us a list of open houses the first day we were in town. She only told me about a few schools. She didn't take me by the hand and show me where the IB school was, which we were coming from an international baccalaureate school. I didn't find out about this school until it was too late to enroll. There was another day where she told us that she was picking up clients from the airport. And I'm thinking, why is she picking up clients from the airport? She didn't pick us up from the airport. But again, she was only getting, why was she frustrated with me when I took what she thought we were going to buy and I cut the price by about $200,000 because I didn't need a big home. And she, visibly got frustrated at that point. Now I understand why. She wasn't getting compensated enough to provide the service that we needed. But that's not what I needed, right? And the company, my husband's company, was spending a lot of money, more than $100,000 to return us to the U.S. So again, you've got the clients whose companies are investing, $100,000 into a moving, and yet sometimes they're receiving the lowest level of care. Now, not always. There are a lot of great agents, and I could name a number of them that are great, and they're not looking at their compensation. But there are a lot that are, and the good agents, and you can ask any brokerage, the good agents a lot of times don't do relocation. They don't touch it because it's not worth it to them.
Yeah, they've looked at the business model and said, no, thank you.
And it's not fair to them. Why am I stuck working with one agent when I moved to Dallas? It wasn't fair to that agent now that I understand how it works, because I ended up buying in an area that she wasn't familiar with. She didn't know the schools. She didn't know some of the unique things about that neighborhood or about that town. Dallas is, like I always say, it's the size of Connecticut. If I'm looking in Frisco, why am I not working with a Frisco agent? And then when I want to go look in Dallas or I want to go look in Southlake, I should have an agent from those areas.
All right, so that's the problem. So what is the solution?
The solution is to totally change the way we do it. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about DOS doing, because the consumer wants it to change, right? I mean, I just spoke at Worldwide ERC recently, and I talked about, the consumer has this in their hand, right? How do we order movies? Right? We don't go into Blockbuster how do we get a car? And it's not just a ride somewhere. We get to pick the size,
so is DOS
when it arrives.
Is DOS an app?
DOS is an app. It launches in February.
Okay.
A different way to search for houses. It's voice technology. So I can do a search with voice search. It's smart technology. So it's going to anticipate what it is I'm looking for. I think work from home is going to be interesting, because work from home, all of a sudden, I'm not limited to school systems, maybe. I'm not limited to a commute to work. So I might be able to put in, hey, I want a house that looks like this. And it's going to auto-populate the houses. Let's say it's a Tudor home, but what all areas have Tudor homes or modern homes? Or
is there still a live real estate agent in the process with DOS?
Not at the beginning, which solves a lot of problems, and which is interesting, because we bring our biases into the workplace, right? We can't help it. That was one of my challenges when I moved to Dallas, right? My agent looked at me and she assumed that I would fit really well in these particular suburbs. She assumed, because she saw my husband's, what his compensation was, that this was the price range we would want to be in. And none of those things were true, right? I've lived all over. I move a lot. I don't like setting up house. I don't like decorating. That's a lot of work. We like to travel. We had 3 kids in college, none of them in state. So it didn't matter what we looked like we made on paper. That was not what we were making. And so she brought her own biases into it. And even worse than that, there have been a number of studies recently. There was one recently done by, I think it was Newsday, and I can't remember the reporter's name. Her first name's Olivia, on racial bias that's brought into the home search process. NAR actually also just settled a lawsuit with the DOJ, which is interesting, because that's really going to change the way the industry is allowed to operate. DOS will allow, Bobby says, it's like having a realtor in your pocket, not your financial pocket, which is the way we feel a lot of times, but in your smartphone, right? So I can ask all these questions. It's AI generated, and it's driven really by what it is that I'm seeking. And I can get all the answers and find all the information I need before I ever have to contact an agent, which is key.
Yeah, and that's going to make the process easier. So now you're not running around as an agent. You're a little bit more targeted in, and it makes the job a lot easier.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, because you've gotten involved with these things. You've created some space for yourself. You got early access to LinkedIn Live. Congratulations. I've been going after it. And we won't get
I have no idea how that happened, honestly. I kind of know. But
you do a pretty good job on LinkedIn. And I want to talk about the power of networking and why folks want to work with you, and the ability for you to kind of get the message out, how ReloTalk is going, all the things that you're doing to promote that through LinkedIn.
Well, again, ReloTalk was an act of love. I guess it was a passion of mine, again, to create a dialogue in the industry. So ReloTalk is really, and now it's turned into a podcast, or being turned into a podcast. Actually was just named one of the top 10 expat podcasts. But it's a conversation about real estate and relocation, because I don't think you can talk about one without talking about the other. And that was usually where the disconnect happened for us. But it's a resource for relocation professionals, for real estate professionals, to go in there and they can find people that have created businesses that can be beneficial to their clients, their assignees. And then also it's with the real estate piece, I interview people that are technology leaders that are doing things different, whether it's in real estate in particular, or it could be somebody like Six Walls and Nextburbs, Nitesh, who has created an app for finding the right neighborhood, the right schools, the right fit for your family, right? Because only you can figure that out. It's very hard for a real estate agent to know what the right fit is, because we all bring different things to the table. We all bring different things that we're looking for. And so I interview the technology leaders and different people that are creating different things that will make Lynn Greenberg of Pivot, that are just using and harnessing technology to simplify that process. But as it's simplified, I mean, the interesting thing is the real estate agent's role is changing. And that's a real problem right now. I think what the real estate agent has to do is getting less and less. A lot of times clients are finding the house. I have a gentleman last week, who wanted me to make an offer on a house. It's the third house I've helped him buy. The first one we found together, and it was a traditional kind of thing. The second one, he found it himself. And then this one, he found himself. It's very hard to justify 3% when the client's doing at least 1% of the work. I can justify my job in ensuring the price and taking care of the contract, and time is money, and I take a lot of that off of a client's hands. But there's again, Uber, I can pick the size ride I want. Do I want a shared ride? Do I want to wait 15 minutes? When do I want to arrive? Do I want an XL? Do I want... Right? We have choice. And in real estate, there's a fixed percent that you have to pay, a fixed way to do it. And that's one of the things that the DOJ, the lawsuit against it, just is causing some things to change in 2021. That's what the consumer wants. The real estate industry, the traditional industry, can't operate without doing it the way it does now. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I think, across, whether you're talking about Uber and the business model there, I mean, I think, understanding like the craziness of something like Uber, where they're a huge company that's never made a profit. It's interesting, right?
Right?
But then you have the whole like beauty salon kind of business model where, somebody comes in, they're cutting people's hair and they pay rent to be, at their booth. And I don't know what the percentages offhand for folks that are in the beauty thing, but I think there's a lot of folks that are taking a haircut when it comes to their actual compensation for cutting hair, right? Because of the business model there. And then, you bring that over to real estate and all these things that are sort of set up against you to actually make money. Although there's this sort of casino sort of, I can get this huge payoff from selling a house kind of piece to it. And so things that make the whole system more transparent, a little bit more clear, a little bit more easy. I think those things are going to be really, really welcome. I want to take this conversation over to the LinkedIn, because whether you're somebody that is looking to connect with folks that could potentially sell you a house, like a realtor, or you're a realtor that is looking to grow their network, you've done an amazing job of growing your network on LinkedIn, are connected to a ton of people, something like 5,500 plus people on LinkedIn. So how have you grown your network and really created connections with your community so that you could have top 10 expat podcast, that sort of thing?
It was desperation, right? Because we had moved. I didn't know anybody in Dallas. I wanted to, I really was very intent on being successful. I wanted to get my career and go from, 0 to 60 in a couple of years, because I'm over 50. I didn't have a whole lot of time. And so LinkedIn was a place that, I didn't really even start on LinkedIn until after I had a manager at my first brokerage who told me, she actually told me I would never be successful. I would never be allowed to do relocation. And after I helped somebody and didn't get paid to do it because it was the right thing to do, she told me I would never be successful and that I couldn't train agents in relocation. And so I really, at that point, didn't have any recourse. I still had my goals, my financial goals, and my goal to replace my husband's salary so he could retire if he wanted to, which I don't know if he ever will or not. But that was my goal. And so I took to LinkedIn, and at that time, video had just been launched on LinkedIn. So I started using video to tell my story, to talk about the challenges of relocation. How do you find your tribe when you're moving to a new city? What do real estate agents need to understand about their relocation client? How to use LinkedIn to get connected to not only your community, but the entire world. And so I just started using video, and that really was, especially when it was first started, it was a great way. And it was interesting because I had so many people connect with me and go, oh my gosh, your story is my story. I can relate to that. And my manager had told me that everybody loves real estate agents. Lindy, you're the only one I know that's ever had a bad experience. And yet I have all these people reaching out to me going, Yes, our real estate agent made a huge difference. Like it either went really well because they were paying attention and understood our needs and served as our first friend, or it was a disaster because we didn't have the support that we needed. They didn't give us good advice. They let us buy a house that we now hate. And that was a story I heard over and over again. So that was kind of one of it, was getting validation, right? That I was on the right track, that I wasn't making this up, as my manager had implied. And then the second was just to get connected. I started going to LinkedIn Local, which was a great place to meet other business leaders in the community. I met Fanny Dunnigan, who I think you had interviewed recently. Got to know her and a number of other people. Yeah, Fanny's fantastic. And other great people that are leaders in the community, in the Dallas community. And again, I'm coming in. I've never lived in Texas. I don't know a thing about Dallas. I don't have a network. I didn't go to college there. And so I had to create my network from scratch. And it was such a great way to do it. So that's, and the video it was interesting after I started doing that. That was when LinkedIn Video out of New York City wanted to do a real estate panel in Dallas. This was shortly after my manager basically let me go. Again, telling me that I was not the right fit for their company. And yet LinkedIn asked me to be on a real estate panel for the real estate industry in Dallas. So that was big for me, because I had so much passion about, I wasn't trying to, I always tell agents, I'm your biggest fan. This needs to be better, not only for the consumer, it's got to be better for the hardworking agents that serve them. We're pawns in the system with the brokerage. In fact, that was one of the other things that I was told at the brokerage was, Lindy, if you do that for your consumer, we can't pay to keep our lights on. And that was my light bulb aha moment of, I thought my job was to protect the consumer's equity, to protect the consumer's investment. And you're telling me my job is to pay your light bill? I get it now. And now I get it. Now I understand why you had 100 agents coming in when I came in, and we're paying $200 desk fees a month. Start doing the math. Every agent knows one friend and one family member that's going to be buying a home in the next 2 years. You're taking 40% to 50% of that commission. Now I get it. This is not set up to help me succeed. This is set up to help the broker succeed. I can't even say the words, succeed. And so that was, and I'm all about the consumer because I've been the consumer, and I've had agents that put my interests first. That's huge. Right? This is a huge investment. And it's not only an investment of money, it's an investment of, are you going to get settled in and transition to this new city well?
Yeah, no, I think that when people connect their job and their service to the good that it does in people's lives, it's a wonderful thing. And I think there's so many companies that make that very difficult on the marching orders, whether you talk about the Wells Fargo scandals of opening more accounts and all these kind of crazy things, the morals and ethics in business are very real, and why so many people probably start on their entrepreneurial journeys because they get tired of having to deal with stuff like that. So I love that you're pushing forward on that. Going back to like the networking and the LinkedIn, I had a job that I got let go of, fired from, however you want to call it, and I ended up working with that company as a vendor later on because of my activity in an association. And so I love that networking story, because it really is a powerful thing, especially for somebody that really cares about growing their personal brand or the brand of their company. It's such a big deal. And talk to me about, as you were going out and networking, because I think a lot of people get frustrated with networking. It doesn't churn results right away for them. They go and they spend the money to go to a meeting, or they join an association, or they join a group, and it doesn't turn into immediate money for them. They get frustrated and they give up. What was the thing that made you knew that it was worth it, and that keeps it being valuable for you?
Well, I do think you have to be selective. I love connection and I love collaborating, and I'm an extrovert, enjoy being with people. So I have to be very careful to be selective, or I would just network all the time and then never have a business. But again, I think we're always better collaborating. And I think for me, the big thing was right after I left and was told, literally, I was told I would never be successful doing business the way I did it. That I read the book, The Go-Giver by Bob Burg. I interviewed him earlier this year. I'm going to be releasing that on the podcast, I think, next week. I read that book, and it was I don't know if you've read it, it's such a powerful little book. And I realized that the way I operated, the way I did business was actually a successful business philosophy. And that I got so excited. And I actually sent like a message to Bob Burg, thinking I would never hear from him, and immediately he replied back to me, and he's always been very supportive, and he's that way with everybody. But the Go-Giver is great, and that's one of the reasons I ended up going to Toth, because after Bobby talked to me, and I was like, no, Bobby, I'm not interested because this and that. I found that he actually has the 5 Go-Giver laws of success on the webpage. I was like, okay. You got me, because I'm such a believer in the law of authenticity, the law of offering value, and the different laws that are associated with the Go-Giver. Have you read the book?
I have not, but I've been hearing the phrase all over the place. So I'm glad that you gave me the author so that I can go chase it down.
Yeah.
And I'm going to the website now. If I can display them on the screen, I will.
Yeah, it's John David Mann and Bob Burg. It's just a powerful, simple little business philosophy, but it's just you give, and you don't give to get, you give to deliver value. And it's going to come back, and you will receive it in return. And so that, to me, that's networking, right? You go and you find ways. And so you're not there to give out your business card and tell everybody. I mean, like, oh my gosh, realtors are the worst too. Like, if you ever put something on Facebook and say you're thinking about selling your house, you'll get 80 responses from 80 different people, agents, and only probably maybe 10% are agents that actually should be listing your house. And I would go to these networking events, and it was always funny, because the realtors, I would hear them say, when somebody would say, I need to sell my farm and ranch or my condo. Oh yeah, I can do that. And they're like, well, do you work in this area? And they're like, oh, I cover all of Dallas. And I'm thinking, you really shouldn't. That's a lot of area to cover. Farm and ranch, to sell a farm and ranch, you kind of want somebody that specializes and has a truck to sell you a farm and ranch, or to sell your farm and ranch. You're just going to be more successful with that. Anyway, so, but for me, it was going and really getting to know who people were, what they were doing, learning from them, finding ways we could collaborate. And again, that's a strength of mine. Strength Finders was a big part of my role, and I'm a connector. But what I found is that by playing in my strengths, and connection is one of them, ideation is another one. So I would talk to entrepreneurs and find out what their problems were, and brainstorm. Have you thought about this? No, I've never thought about that. But using those gifts, those strengths, and then it comes back, right? When you help somebody, when when you're not there to get, it has to be authentic. You can't be there giving, knowing you're going to get. There's an authenticity to it. The Go-Giver may not, I wouldn't say that my husband's business philosophy is based on the Go-Giver. He is that way in a lot of ways, but we operate very differently, and that's okay. Some people are going to be more naturally inclined to be that. And I think, again, it goes back to Strength Finders, which I don't know if you've done that or not. I think that is a huge thing to know what your top 5 strengths are, and figure out ways to play within that. And figure out ways, know what those strengths are, and then find ways that you can use those to benefit other people.
I love that. I can't help but put in a plug. I do a networking event that's going to be right after this at 12 o'clock on Tuesdays. And a big part of that is making sure people tell their stories to each other, to do exactly these things. Stay open, which I'll translate as being vulnerable right now, and then creating value through, actually, having a message and teaching through your story, touching lives, which I think you do that, and you referred back to it in terms of telling your story on LinkedIn, which is, allowing people to sort of relate to you through your story, and teaching that way, building networks, which is, actually going through this exercise of doing that with people, and especially doing it in small groups or even one-on-one is really the best thing. And that be real, which is, the whole way through, you're being yourself so many times. if I'm going to chastise anybody in my program, which I try not to chastise anybody, but if somebody's coming at everybody with just the sales pitch, it's not really a valuable thing. And I think all of us now, we're such an ad blocker kind of way in society. We see somebody that's just trying to push their message in, and it's buy without providing any value. We just sort of showed off. So I'm trying to do people the favor of, hey, we're going to buy your product. If it's good and it's got value and it's meaningful, we're going to buy your product, or we're going to recommend somebody else to buy your product. Mm-hmm. Tell me about you. Tell me about, your story and what, what book have you read? Oh, look at that. You've read The Go-Giver. I'm going to go pick that up. That's amazing. That's going to add value to my life. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that I think, in all the meetings that I've met more people over the last 8 months than probably over the last 3 years through doing so many of these networking events and one-to-one over virtual. Don't have to drive anywhere, right? Everything's right over the computer. You have this ability to connect with people in a way that you just wouldn't have other hand. And then by doing this program, which I know you talked about, getting into doing ReloTalk and starting on that journey, but you get to talk, and you talked about, I reached out to Bob Bergen and came on the program. This is within your realm. If you're watching this, you have the ability to launch your podcast, launch your YouTube channel, and connect with people in a different kind of way by providing them exposure through your channel. And you get to have some one-on-one time. Lindy has been providing me amazing notes. I'm writing down here and taking away, and she's providing time that she might not have provided to me otherwise, because she's got things that are going on in her life and busy. And that's been an amazing value to me. I think we're doing great things with the channel. This is episode 161, but that's something that has been extreme value. It's like a free education course for me every single day. And that's an amazing part of the journey.
And you're doing it. You haven't even read the book, so I can't even imagine where you'll be after reading the book. But the first law is the law of value, and that's that you deliver more in value than what you receive in payment. And you're doing that. You're interviewing guests. You're learning, right? So you're getting a whole lot from it. But you're also giving them the opportunity, giving people a platform, right? And that's big. And then it's not like you're asking for business. You may get business from it at some point, and it will translate to business at some point. But it doesn't stop there, right? I mean, that was always my frustration with my real estate agent. And I always tell people, your job doesn't end when the transaction ends. And the best real estate agents that I ever had understood their job didn't end at the closing table, right? They were still there the next day. Hey, can I bring you dinner?
Right. The value of staying in touch with this person, because how many people, if this person has a great experience with you, how many people does this person know that are gonna need a home?
It's why I had this client for a third time last week, right? I moved him from California the first time, and he just has continued to trust me and has continued to tell people about me. And I think, and I can't remember where I was going to go with that, but it's not complicated. No. It's just knowing, it's understanding, it's empathy. And I think empathy is everything. And I think 2020 has definitely shown us that. And again, I go back to my example. When everything shut down in March, the first thing I did was I picked up my phone and I called people that had moved from out of state, or I texted them, hey, how are you? I know you moved in October. Have you got your tribe yet? Have you gotten established? How is it with your husband working from home? How is it with the kids being at home? I just wanted to check on them. And so after I kind of went through my list and everything, I thought, how nobody's called me? Like, my agent in Dallas didn't call. My agent here didn't call. Nobody from the company called. Like, I thought that was it. I mean, it was like I didn't need anybody, but I was thinking back to the times when I moved to Chicago in January, and I went into labor in February. I wasn't due for another 10 weeks, and I had to go to the hospital, and I had to call somebody to come get my kids. We couldn't find my husband. How would you do that in the middle of a pandemic? Who's going to come keep your kids? We didn't know about this disease. We didn't know enough to know that it wasn't going to kill us if we got exposed to it. How would you do that? I knew nobody in Chicago. If I had moved here with my little kids, I would have known nobody to call. There's just a lot to be said when you move to a new city. I mean, that's just, to me, it's innate because I've done it. One of the things that I'm creating with DOS Social Agents, I'm creating a small, DOS Social Agents can be any agent, but I'm creating a group of agents that have actually been relocation clients and expats, right? Wow. Because who better to, we can get you connected to a realtor that's going to take care of the transaction piece, But that DOS social agent is going to take care of the social and emotional piece of moving.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's a huge part of it.
Talk to me. I want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you. I think the advice that you're giving folks on how to stay, in touch and relevant with people is so big. You kind of set it up. I want to kind of hear the end of it. So you were reaching out to people and nobody was getting back to you. So I want to hear the end of it. I mean, we're still going through it now. My landlord is in the hospital right now, getting oxygen at the tail end of it. Luckily, she's gotten better, but she's dealing with COVID. Her husband passed. People are dealing with so much stuff.
Yeah.
So she's dealing with this on the tail end of other drama that's taken place even pre-COVID. People got a lot going on in their lives. So staying in touch with them through the downtime, so that when things are better, that the business can happen. But you're supporting them. You're providing value. I think that's immeasurably valuable, both from a standpoint of the value that you're providing them, but we all need a hand up at some point as well. So, setting that up and giving into the future so that you will receive, not that that's necessarily the goal, but that's what happens when you give, right?
Yeah, it is. It's just the law of receptivity, right? It just, what comes around goes around, or what goes around comes around. And so it's a powerful, like I said, powerful business philosophy to follow. And you seem to do it very well, whether you know it or not.
Thank you very much. All right. So tell people how they can get in touch with you, Lindy, where they should go. I know I have your LinkedIn address, and I think I have the DOS social links down below on YouTube and then off to the side on Facebook. But let people know your social media channels and where they should get in touch with you and who you're trying to connect with right now.
So first of all, I'm terrible at social media. I'm really good at LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. So that's the best place to find me. If you're not on LinkedIn, you can find me on Facebook, and you can go to DOS Social Agents. Again, not the best place to represent what I do, because I forget to post on LinkedIn or on any of the other channels. But yeah, just connect with me. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, or my email address is the same as my name, Lindy at lindychapman.com. Always happy to set up a conversation. And then ReloTalk is Relo as in relocation talk, and it's on iTunes and Spotify and anywhere else you listen to your podcast. I think it's there's some really great, the people that I interview make it. They've got great stories. They've created great businesses. If you're in real estate or relocation, or you have a company and you move people, it's really, I think, a valuable resource to be able to find people that can meet the needs of people that have relocated, and to share some of the challenges and the ways to solve them. So that's the best place. Those are the best places to find me. And then on Wednesdays, I'm starting a series on LinkedIn Live that'll also stream to Facebook, Social Agents website, or Social Agents on Facebook, and probably a couple of other places, with Bobby Bryant, the founder, where we're going to talk about what social agents are, why he created it, what's next in real estate, how you can survive this industry as a real estate professional. And so that'll be fun. That's going to be on Wednesdays at noon.
Who should be reaching out and connecting with you, Lindy?
Well, I'm always open to connect with anybody, because I always find the most amazing connections are sometimes the ones that I didn't expect them to be. So I never limit it. But if you have a real estate license, if you're thinking about getting into the real estate industry, if you are in the relocation industry, if you are a company or with a company that moves employees, if you're thinking about buying or selling your house, I mean, I am a relocation and real estate consultant. I started a hashtag about 2 years ago, Not Your Realtor, because you need somebody that you can talk to that's not going to put the hard sell on, that's not trying to get the house listed or trying to work with you as a buyer, that's really going to walk through, do you need to list with a 1% brokerage, or do you need a full service 6% brokerage? Mm-hmm. If you found the house, how can you negotiate commissions? If you Google my name in Boston Globe, there was an article recently where I was interviewed on, can you negotiate your agent's commission? You can. You have to know how to do it, and you have to know when to do it. Right? It doesn't always make sense to do it. But I think understanding the questions to ask, and that was what got us in the most trouble, which we just didn't understand how it worked. So we didn't know the questions to ask.
Yeah, I find that incredibly valuable. Reach out to Lindy. figure out the questions to ask. I'm this is my life mission, education and providing opportunities. So when you're in that position and you notice that there's somebody that has information, so maybe you're watching this and you know somebody that's starting to embark on that journey, connect them with Lindy, do them a favor. It's going to be amazing for them. Thank you, Lindy, so much for this. Lindy, say goodbye to everybody.
Thanks, Cameron, so much.
Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C.